Today is March 17th, 2007, and this tape is one in a series of interviews of North Fork women for the Archives Committee of the North Fork Women for Women Fund. I am Lisa Scott. Barbara Pfanz is on camera. Also with us is Lee Cole, as we are in her home. Today, we are talking with Cynthia Ickes and Colette Clayton, who have been part of the North Fork community since the 1980s. Colette, you've been here a bit longer than Cindy. How about we start with you?
Okay.
You're from New Jersey?
Yep. Was born in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. That's right.
Does this remind you of New Jersey at all, or is it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Just being near the water. I mean, I didn't grow up on the shore, but I grew up more toward South Jersey. I was born in Point Pleasant, which is right on the ocean, and my grandparents and aunts and uncles were all down there, and I went to the ocean every day, and the whole salt water. I love marshes and things like that, so yeah, this very much feels like, a lot of it feels like New Jersey, the same smells and things of that nature, yeah.
And your New Jersey was much more rural than the New Jersey I'm used to.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up in New Jersey?
No, I didn't grow up in New Jersey.
Oh, just the Jersey you're used to.
Yeah, the legendary New Jersey.
Well, you want me to say a little bit about that?
Sure.
Well, back then, I mean, I grew up in a little town called Cheesequake, which was only 30 miles from New York City, but it was like smack in the middle of the, say, beaches at Manasquan and Point Pleasant in New York City, and it was all farms and very rural, and the school I went to had no plumbing. I remember when they put the plumbing in, I was in the 4th grade, and that was a big deal. Prior to that, we had to go to the outhouse, and we were told to bring extra pairs of socks and gloves, and, you know, 2 rooms, 2 teachers, 1st to the 8th grade, and there'd be only just a handful of kids in each grade. In the 1st grade, I think there were 4 of us, 4 or 5 of us. And then it just grew, because of where it was located, it just grew unbelievably. They finally had to build us a school. They moved us, bused us to different schools. You know, they started building housing developments. They started building shopping centers. And I was going to burn them down when I was around 10. But of course, it was not a very good idea. So today, my brother still lives down there in the same house. And it's, you wouldn't even recognize it. It looks like Queens now. And then it was a dirt road with farm fields all around and, you know, things like that. So.
And Colette, you were actually, Cindy, I should say, you were born in Queens?
Yeah, born in Queens. We lived there for a year. And I think my parents were coming out here summers to Mount Sinai, which is near Port Jefferson. And so after a year, we lived in Mount Sinai full time. But I think what my mother used to do was to take, she loved it out here all the time, but they had to work in the city. So she'd start the kids in school here, which was also a 2-room schoolhouse then, back in the late 50s. And then take them out of school, a little weird, take them out of school in October when the weather got cooler, put them in school in New York, and then when the weather got warm in the spring, take them out of school in New York and bring them out here and put them in the school in Mount Sinai. So, a little disruption in their lives, huh? But I never went through that. I mean, I was here from the time I was 1 year old. And also, it was a very rural area. We got our milk, you know, at 3 o'clock in the morning from the local dairy farm, and same thing, Mount Sinai is all developed now. So I think both of us came out, I don't know, you came out with friends, but when you brought me out here to visit, and, you know, once you see the North Fork and how beautiful it is, and it's the only place on Long Island left, you know, the 2 forks, of course. So when it came time to buy a house and so on and figure out, I just always, once I saw it, knew that I didn't want to live in New York anymore. And that's when I was going to med school and, planning on working out here, ultimately.
But you two met off the North Fork, right?
Yeah, we met in the city
In New York City.
through the shows that Anne Mackay directed.
Yeah.
Colette did one show. Tell them about that one.
Well, early on, I think
Before we knew her.
1981, I'm not remembering. Anne Mackay and, what's her name? Marilyn Lamke decided to put on these shows, these productions, all lesbian cast. And the first show, Marilyn directed, no,
Anne directed.
Anne
Marilyn
directed,
produced.
Marilyn produced, and the theme was the North Fork women who were the jockey ones who liked to play softball and things versus the South Shore women who were a little bit more, sophisticated or whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
And so all of the skits that was the theme of all the skits. And I think, if I remember, there were 100 women, and everyone rehearsed their own little skit or their little musical thing separate from one another. And the very first time we all came together and actually met each other was at Southampton College, where it was put on, the day before the actual show. So we all met each other for dress rehearsal for the very first time. Dress rehearsal was terrible. I mean, it was like, oh my God, we're really going to do this for an audience? But it didn't matter, because it didn't matter what we did. The audience roared with applause the moment the curtain opened, just to see other lesbians on the stage. So it didn't matter what we did. They just loved everything we did. As it turned out better than the dress rehearsal, thank God. But I was part of the band. I wasn't in any skits. I just played guitar in the band. And the second show, we were looking for singers. And Anne was always sending us people who didn't necessarily, in our opinion, who really didn't sing very well. And so she was sending us, and the band consisted of, that time, myself, Colleen McDonough, Rosemary Gaffney, and Carol Taylor. And so she sent over to the loft where we were rehearsing, and Cindy comes in, and we're thinking, oh boy, here we go. And so she started to sing. I don't remember what you sang.
Some disco tune or something.
Whatever.
Some Donna Summer song.
The minute she opened her mouth, it was like, hey, she can sing. And so she left, and then at the buzz, 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 do you think she's gay? I don't know.
Well, it was barely.
It was, that thing. Anyway, so Cindy joined us as a singer in that, I forget the name of that show. Was that Cruise?
And that was at a synagogue in the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
Benefit for I think Estrella. I think they did benefits for Estrella.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. These were always benefits.
Anyway.
And so then we did that one, and we met during that show and got together the night of the show.
Yes,
And
because Cindy was flirting with me.
Yeah, well.
And
Okay.
so that was that.
So Colette stayed over at my place, and this is the story I wrote to you. She left her guitar and her hairbrush, and I knew that there was something going on if she was going to leave her two favorite, belongings at my place. She never was without that turquoise hairbrush. Her hair was very long at the time. Anyway, so we got together. The other thing, I had two parakeets, and I'd always have to get them in the cage at night, but they were always perching on that little trim around the ceiling, so I'm running around the apartment that night with this wand trying to get my birds in the cage. I thought, oh God. They couldn't go in the cages by themselves one night, I gotta make a fool of myself.
They were cute.
Anyway, so that was 1983,
Mm-hmm.
and Colette was living in apartments all over the city. So she finally got an apartment, subletted Julie Dickey's apartment on 15th Street, and I was on 17th Street, and eventually we just moved into my apartment.
Mm. That's it.
That's that.
So was that a ploy, the hairbrush? I mean, was that a...
I can't believe you remember the color.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it was the ubiquitous hairbrush.
Well, when you have long hair, you can't remember.
I know. She's pretty vain. Most people don't know that about Colette's pretty vain.
Thanks.
Well, now they do.
Right.
And you were the first to know of the North Fork also, to come out to the North Fork?
The first time I came out to the North Fork was with Rose Kaplan, if anyone knows Rose, and Evelyn Hannon. I think her last name is Hannon. They worked with my lover at the time, Sam, Mary Alice Rudowski. And they all worked together. With Dolores Alexander, worked at Time Life magazines. Julie, Jill, Evelyn,
Judy Fogarty.
Rose, Judy Fogarty, lots of women. Anyway, so I knew Dolores back then. And so we came out with Evelyn and Rose and stayed at the Townsend Manor Inn. And they knew a lot of people out here, Evelyn in particular, and she had a cocktail party, I remember. And at that cocktail party came Ann Mackay, Mary Dorman, Leslie Wiseman, who I already knew from the city, and I don't remember how I know Leslie. This is pre-Sharon Good. And a bunch of other women that I didn't know, but, you know, and that was my first introduction to the community. And then Sam and I were looking to buy a house. And so we started looking around out here, and then Leslie hooked up with Sharon, and they were renting the cottages out at the end of Young's Road. So we rented with them, and we spent several summers out there in the middle cottage. Then we moved up to the front cottage. And there's a lot of cottage stories. And
Like?
well, no, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, as everyone who still rents down there still, I'm sure, has a lot of fun. So, you know, that's my introduction to the North Fork. And Sam and I eventually bought a house in Greenport. Maybe I should have asked for that water. And then we broke up, and the way you do, and then I met Cindy. So that's that.
So that was 1980.
That was, that was before 83.
Yeah, because I met Cindy in
And
83.
83.
You know those
So
times in
several
your
years.
life when a
Well,
lot happened?
Right, in like 2 years or something.
That was one of those periods, 1980, 81, 82. There was a lot happening. Could I get a glass of water?
Sure.
I'm ready now.
Okay. My mind is wandering.
Yeah, right.
So you've lived on the Fork together since 1988.
88. That's
And
when
you-
we bought our house.
And you've been together since 1983.
Right, right.
So
Well, we were part-time in the house until,
From 88 until I started living there when I went to med school in 91.
91.
and I was still in the city working. So we basically only saw each other on weekends for that period of time.
That was... The only bad thing about that, actually, was that on Friday nights, she's in city mode, I'm in country mode, and we fought every single Friday night when she got off the bus. And we figured, okay, well, we'll go out to a restaurant, and we won't eat at home, then we won't fight in the restaurant, and we fight in the restaurant. There was something about getting those moods together on Friday night that was problematic. Oh, well.
Yeah.
And then when I finished, I finished med school in 95. Then I went back to New York to training for 3 years. And at the end, in 1998, at the end of my training, Colette's company was bought, and they asked if she wanted to go to Indianapolis, and she didn't. So then she was able to come out full time also. So we've been both of us have been full time since 98.
Right. Which seems like just yesterday. And then Cindy, who was working for another local physician here, decided she did not want to be in partnership with this particular physician. And so then he decided she gave notice and was going to complete her contract with this individual, and then he fired her. And then I went into a panic because I didn't have my job anymore. So anyway, Cindy opened up private
Colette took a
practice.
prototype for a business plan off the internet and filled it out, and we went to a million banks, and finally a bank gave us money, and we opened up, the office, and that's been it since 2000.
Yeah, right.
And of course, now Colette's working with me, which was not our plan. But, you know, making a living in medicine is tricky these days, so that's just how we make it work.
And does it work, it works for the business part, does it work for the
Yeah, it
relationship
does.
part?
It does. The only problem there is that if we banter the way we do at home in the office, people who don't know, you know, patients waiting in the waiting room who don't know we're together, you know, it sounds a little, God, it sounds bad. You know, it sounds like I'm treating her badly, or vice versa.
It doesn't happen, that doesn't happen.
It's not a
often
lot.
at
It's
all.
just that, you know, it's a different relationship. So
Yeah.
if people don't know, it's like,
A lot of people treat me differently. The ones who don't know the relationship tend to treat me like a
like people
secretary.
treat secretaries.
you know, and I don't like that very much, because I don't like that. But it's not a problem at all, because Cindy does what she does, which is totally different from really what I'm doing, you know, so.
It works
out.
It works until retirement.
And are you, and have you been out? I mean, in
From the
workplace or
start,
in your personal-
yeah. From the time I came out in 1981 or 2. I was only out a couple of years. That's probably why I didn't look so out when you first met me.
Right.
You know, and I was out from the start and called my friends. I had a summer job in Massachusetts for 5 years during college, and called on my friends and lost a few of them, and it just was easy. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of black and white. It was easier to just be out and let the chips fall where they may. And the same was true when I interviewed for this job out in Greenport. I let them know also. I certainly didn't want them to be finding out by surprise, by accident. So that was fine, you know. It's not been a problem. I mentioned, I think, that Norfolk had one of the dances, and I was going to DJ one of the dances, and we put flyers up around the community, and the next week or the week after, I lost maybe 10 or 20 patients after that. But that was it. And I mean, that's out of 1,000 patients, you know what I mean? And I've had women in the community come to me, and, you know, so that never really got in the way of my career. And I was out in the city during training, school and training, but that's where I met Carmen. I went to that training program at St. Vincent's basically because Carmen was there. So, Carmen Ramos, that is. So it's not been a problem for me. Colette's mother lives one town away, and they've never had that conversation.
Well, I've never
Yeah.
really been out. I mean, I am and I'm not. But there's enough difference in age between Cindy and I that she became.
Things were different when
yeah,
I came out.
She came
Very
out, and
much so.
she came out, and it's like, oh, you know, there was only the one time I think we were on a trip in Pennsylvania, and I had this old Hornet, and it didn't have the bucket seats, it had a bench seat, and Cindy would sit right next to me. And one time we got chased down the thruway, I think it was the thruway,
Yeah,
by
some
a
guy in a
couple of
truck.
guys in a truck, you
That
know,
was a
with the
little weird.
rifle hanging in the back window.
Yeah, that was a little weird
You know, so, I mean, that was a taste for her,
of what
Of
things
what-
were.
how it was, you know.
Yeah, that was weird.
So I'm not an out type person anyway. I'm a lot quieter than Cindy usually, and not as social, and you know, I'm just, you know, I'm more introverted than she is, so it's my nature is what I'm saying. It's not necessarily a decision that, oh, I can't be out. But it is a complication with my mother, who decided to move up here after my dad died.
That was my idea.
Yeah, it was Cindy's idea. And she was right. It was a lot easier for me to fly to Florida every 2 seconds when she cried wolf, and I never knew whether she was sick, not sick. So that's worked out well, and I've been able to develop a relationship with her again, or a relationship with her, period, because I never really got along with my mother. So, but she's pretty cool, actually, now that she's on Prozac.
And guess who's her doctor? No, I didn't. She didn't.
No, she needed the Prozac.
No, I mean, she asked for it actually. So
But we,
I'm not drugging my mother-in-law.
So we've never had the discussion, but it's clear that she knows. I mean, she and her boyfriend come to all of our concerts, and you have
They
to be
love the
sort of
concerts.
brain dead not to get it. You know, so I just don't have the conversation basically because, and this might not be valid, but it's how I feel. When I was young and struggling with my sexual identity, neither one of my parents gave me any assistance. So my feeling is I'm not making it any easier for her. She wants to have a conversation with me, she can have it, but I'm not going to be the one to bring it up. And so it sort of works out. My brother and his wife, they know, you know, my
They
nephews
send us
know.
anniversary cards.
Cindy-
They really, and they're very suburban, you know, that's very nice.
Yeah, but they all know.
Yeah, and they treat me the whole family treats me very well.
And Cindy's
Ditto for
family.
my family, but my family's
is
all
even
wacky,
more-
you know, they're all
Cindy's
left-wing
family-
liberals from
Yeah, Cindy's family
generations
is
back, so, you know,
pretty
it's
out
not an
there.
issue with my family.
Yeah. So that's easy. It's not a problem.
Works out.
And you're still involved in music with the Narrow River Singers,
Well,
for
right.
instance?
And that's, I think, a way for a lot of us to play you know, be involved in music. The talent shows and all the other things that we've done all these years. It's a great way, and that's probably more music than I had ever done prior. So I think it keeps us all involved. It's a great thing. I mean, my sisters and I are talking about singing together now too. My oldest sister moved up from North Carolina, so now they're an hour, two and a half hours away. 3 hours away.
Yeah,
Depends
physical traffic.
on who's driving.
And that.
So,
Lead foot.
so, you know, there's a lot of opportunity to play music or to sing and so on. I actually tried to pursue a career in music, and that's when I met you, and I met other women in the community who were very, very talented, and they were struggling to make it. I thought, this isn't going to work. So I, you know, decided that I needed to make a decent living, which was my other big mistake, shooting so low, you know. So that's when I decided to go to med school. I don't mean low being med school, but it's not easy to make a living in medicine. And anyway, I decided to shift because it was clear. At that time, and this was back in 1980, I gave myself 10 years to see if I could make a living in music, and after 5, it was clear it wasn't going to happen. So I did that whole tramping the streets in New York and auditioning and lessons and all that stuff. You know, made for background for Narrow River Singers, you know, so that's good.
And your interest in music beyond that is,
Well,
I mean, your sisters,
we're a musical family. I mean,
Right.
in general. I don't know what will ever happen to that, but my sister, my oldest sister, still has a career at IBM, and she's the one making the money. So every time we go out there, we go to the guitar store. That's my plan the next time, to go out and get it. Oh, we have to have this. Oh, we did one gig in New Jersey. My sister, 2 years older, Jane, wanted to perform together, and she has a friend who had a cafe, and they were having a benefit, and so on and so forth. So she got us roped into doing this thing, and I thought, she had never performed, ever, never sung in public, and had this huge idea of how this thing was going to come
And
off.
didn't rehearse.
So I got a bunch of songs together, I sent him a tape, sent the blind piano player who was going to accompany us the tape, and we went out, and Friday night we got together with him just to figure out what songs we were going to do, what order, and the next day we did it at like 1:30 in the afternoon. It was horrendous. It really was. I figured it was going to be what it was going to be. Colette filmed it. We went home that night. We started watching it, and my sister walked out of the room. It was so. I mean, she just didn't really know how much it takes to put a performance together, you know. So she was mortified. My other sister, the Aquarian, well, what worked and what didn't work, she starts writing her list out. You know, one thing I know for sure, I need a microphone, she says. So we go out the next day and we start buying microphones and, you know,
Yeah,
a
they
keyboard and blah, blah, blah. So the next thing we
I
need is a
tried to
PA
rein it
system.
in,
Once we
but
have the PA system, now we're ready to
stop
roll.
also.
So who knows what'll happen to that. But there'll always be something going on in music. And now Eileen Rich is putting a group together too, so that's going to be interesting. So, you know, you get to do it one way or the other.
And your medical experience, your medical practice?
I started, when we opened the office in 2000, by then it was clear to me, and I had only been practicing for a couple of years then, it was clear to me that Western medicine has huge deficits. I also wasn't happy with the power that the pharmaceutical companies have over medicine, what we learn, what we're, invited to teach patients. It really was unbalanced. And I had gone to alternative practitioners for a couple of different things and had very good results. So I wasn't happy with this big split between integrated medicine and Western medicine. And I also found out a couple of very obvious, profound issues. The first was about cholesterol. I don't believe what we've been taught about cholesterol at all. I mean, it's 180, what I believe is 180 degrees from what we've been taught. And that's, I almost didn't know what to do with that information. But I feel that the pharmaceutical companies took advantage of something that happened after World War II, when everything was rationed and people's cholesterols went down and the incidence of heart disease went down, and the assumption was that fat in the diet caused high cholesterol, which caused cardiovascular disease because there's cholesterol in a plaque. They did the studies and absolutely never could prove that fat in the diet caused high serum cholesterol. Never proved that. But by then they had a number of medicines that they could sell to, bring your cholesterol down that were very effective in doing that. And I believe they didn't want that information to get out. So anyone who started speaking that way, Robert Atkins is an example, was smeared. I think it was call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think it was information that was adopted by accident and then perpetuated on purpose. So then I found that out because I was doing something differently to bring cholesterol down and so on, and cholesterol dropped very quickly. My family, it worked for my family. Well, maybe it's genetic, and I started one by one offering to patients. One by one, patients are bringing down their cholesterol, basically cutting sweets and starches, and eating fat. So when I saw that, now this is not a huge study, but I thought something is wrong here. And that was the beginning of my disenchantment with Western medicine. So it's been difficult. And basically what I've done all these years is to do what I can to find out the truth about these basic issues. And, that's what we talk about. So it's been, and to make a living is not easy. That's been a disappointment. So it's not what I thought it would be, but I have a group of about 900 to 1,000 patients now. And, I figure that my role is to be that bridge between Western and the integrated modalities. And someday we'll put it all together.
And you feel like there's an audience for that kind of thinking on the North Fork?
Here and there, probably 30% of my patients, maybe a little more. And it's not just the younger ones. You'd be amazed at some of the, I have patients, I have one woman who's over 70, I believe, who was a flyer, flew a plane during World War II. That kind of person, who's already out of the mold, they're more amenable to hearing these things. And when you get someone who's over 70, this is where medicine does get exciting, who's willing to make those changes and feels better, that's a great thing. So there are those people. It's not a huge percentage, but some. Enough that it's worthwhile, speaking that language.
Yeah. And Colette, you said you were offered a chance to go to Paris or the North Fork?
Oh, yeah. When I graduated from college, my lover at the time said, do you want to take a trip to Paris or do you want to spend a month in the North Fork? And I didn't have to think twice. Coming out here, you know, and staying in one of the cottages on Young's Road for a month was like my idea of heaven. So.
And any heavenly experiences you had there?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was
Yes, and yes.
That was a rough time when you were breaking up with Sam. That was a rough time.
Yeah,
And
that
you
was.
saw this one, and you saw that one.
Cindy
That's basically what she's
Cindy likes to
referencing.
tell my stories for me.
No, I'll
But we
introduce
have
them
to
and then
get-
you can tell them.
We have to draw a line somewhere. But yeah, no, it was just one of those, you know, it was hard to grow up to become mature at the same time your heterosexual friends were, because you just didn't have, or I didn't have the experiences. I had little experiences here and there, but, you know, but when I came out here and there were all these women all over the place, you know, and, you know, we were all in our 30s, early 30s, and you could almost feel the sexual energy flying around the room, you know. So it was interesting. So, yeah, I had a good time.
So how would you say the North Fork has changed since you've been here, or has it? I mean, is it?
Oh, it's just gotten bigger. It's gotten way bigger. I think I mentioned when you sent me the email. I remember one of the first times we were out here was 4th of July. I think we were with Leslie and Sharon. And there was a 4th of July party, and they were going to it. And Leslie said, oh no, you can come with us. So we did, and I, of course, was very shy, and all these women all over and everything. And it was at Edna Bennett and Pepper Wheeler's on the bluff somewhere in East Marion, I don't know. And
Were those the Bluefish Cove cottages?
I don't know.
Oh.
Mm-mm. I don't think so. But anyway, and it was, I'd say there may be at tops 50 women there. And I remember Ellen Neff the best. I don't think I met Ellen before that time. And she had her 2 young sons with her. And I was just really impressed, you know, with, you know, there she is. She's obviously been married, has children. I never met a lesbian before that I knew of that had children. It was just nice to see the variety of people and the different ages. You know, Edna and Pepper were, you know, older, and of course there was a bunch of us all around the same age, and then a smattering of people in between. So that's how it was. You could just go to someone's party and everyone would sort of be there. And then, well, I think the musicals that Anne Mackay started really brought even more people out this way. I remember coming and staying at her place. You were with me then. We both stayed at Anne's. She took us out in her sailboat, she and Cynthia Beer. And Cindy and I were first together, so we're like all over each other. And that was a real no-no. Anne was always counseling people as to what the proper behavior was. So that reminds me of another
Anne's
time.
going to watch this, by the way, so
Is she?
probably.
Well,
Well, I'm
I'm
not
sure she would
saying
agree
that-
that she.
Well, she did. She always counseled people on how the proper behavior was.
Decorum.
I'll never forget one time, it was on Young's Road, and I'm not remembering their names, but they're still around, they're still together. They rented the house that, who's the jock that plays softball? She plays golf, short blonde hair.
Ann Keating.
Ann Keating. The house that Ann Keating now owns used to be a rental, and 2 women were in there, and they were, I guess, in the hot stages of their relationship, and they'd be out on the front lawn making out, so the story goes, and I think Anne went over to counsel them that, you know, you don't do those things on your front lawn, so. But she was right in a way, you know. But anyway, the community, I think because of Anne and the musicals that she directed, she, you know, introduced a lot of people to the North Fork.
She basically was responsible for us getting together, for sure.
Well, yeah, we
She
would
was.
never have met
And she-
had it not been for that.
Right.
Yeah. And so thank you, Anne.
Right. And we
Um,
still thank you.
you know, and just, you know, now there's a community of people all the way from Orion, all the way,
Forever.
you know,
Forever.
west,
Burton.
Mattatuck and beyond. And Cindy and I really hang out more.
We're lazy. Now to drive to Riverhead is a big deal.
West, you know, so, yeah, it's, in that regard, it's changed a lot. And of course, things have gotten built up, but thank God for the vineyards.
Thank God for the vineyards and thank God for Mel Spiro.
That's another
who's
thing.
doing amazing things
Yeah.
with preserving the open space, which really, really is important.
Yeah, we
You
took
know,
a hike the
To
other day
lose this kind of environment would be a tragedy.
through one of the preserved lands, and as I was walking, I was thinking, God, I really should pick up the phone and thank Melissa.
I know.
You know, because she's really done a lot. Thank God. You know, and now all this talk about Clark's Beach. Well, we don't need
Selling
to get
Clark's
into politics, but
And the fact, and when Newfolk got together, that really congealed the whole community, even though it was, at a time when I think it was getting huge, it was a way to still bring everybody together. And the first auction was at Marion Wiles' house.
was it the first
That
or
was a
second?
funky event.
Was it the first or second?
Oh, I don't know.
Because there was another early one at that house that two women.
Oh, right. In Southold somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe that was the
They were
second one.
loosely put together events and with the, you know, the structure of Newfolk, you know, building, they're really becoming focused events. So that's really made a change.
Mm.
And it's always an excuse to do a fundraiser, you know what I mean? That's how we get our music in, you know, Newfolk. Or Narrow Rivers, either way. So that's good.
Any final thoughts or final words? Because I think this has been lovely.
It's a great place to live out here. It's a great community. We, once in a while, when things look like they're getting congested, I think about moving upstate. You'd be here forever.
I have my
But it's
feet are
really,
buried.
I know, but it's hard to think about going somewhere where there's no community. It's not just going somewhere where there's not a community. You know, we're really, our lives are intertwined with each other now, so it would be hard to let that go.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of history, you know, and a lot of people you've known for, 30 years who have witnessed, the different events and the different stages of your life. And it's hard to up and leave something like that. It's hard for me.
But it's not
anyway.
just the women who've been here for a long time. New women come into the community too, and I know that we've been trying to, get them involved, and I think over some time that happens. So you don't have to be here for very long to be part of this community, which I think is important.
Mhm.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I agree.
President Jura, you gotta come to Bayonne and get me out of here. She says, well, how am I gonna do that? She didn't drive. I said, you gotta find someone who drives and bring the money. She said, okay. Gets the money, calls a friend, drive to Bayonne. By that time, they gave me a cigarette and we're chatting, and I said, boy, I'll never be back here again. And he says to me, oh, you'll be back, you're all back. And I thought, I would have gone for his throat if there weren't bars between us. So, next morning, my father, my mother, my brother.
Anyway.
So,
Well, that was pain.
were you sprung, or are you still fleeing?
Well,
Yeah.
you had, so what is that, a misdemeanor?
I moved to New York.
You were a feisty thing back then.
It was a little nuts.
So what time do we have to be at chorus? 2:30 today?
I don't even,
What time is it?
It's 1:10, 1:05.
oh, did you look at the thing? Are you doing?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
What?
I didn't try to sing it, but I'm sure it'll fit.
Oh,
Yeah.
the,
Right.
I meant to email Baz, but I wanted a chance to, at least I think she's doing t-shirts,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
it's just as part of it. It's,
Okay, good.
so that she gets a little,
Elise?
Person who went through her bureau drawers and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeek.
So she has always been very private. I probably say things that I shouldn't, but, and mine's just as self-esteem.
That's
I
why,
didn't say
that's why you
anything
work.
negative about Ann, did I?
No.
When I was bought the house.
Yeah.
Early
I,
years.
I saw them this morning and I knew Jay had stocked it all together.
I don't know, 1990.
It must be,
Down syndrome, overexpression of genes resulting from Turner's, oh.
it must be endless with you, with people, with the calls. Oh my God.
Well,
The
you know,
smile
it's
was
not
like
so
exactly
bad.
the same.
I cover
Yeah.
myself.
This one
I don't, most people are on, so it's just easier to do
He
it this
doesn't
way.
even remember.
And people are
Whatever
pretty
works.
respectful, I have to say, you know, you go into town and I'll go in the grocery store and people
And-
always sit around, but this way I get to make sure that someone's not a nut job before
I love these.
I mean, I've had a couple of,
Yeah.
when I put an ad in the paper in like in
That's
2000
when
when
we
we opened the office.
setting the yard up.
And I
We
thought,
had
I got
parties
some
when she-
real, I don't do that. And to not make me track them down for an appointment. If I see them for a yearly physical, I get blood work and there's something that I have to follow up on, I send them a card. I get people who just don't show up. Don't call, don't cancel, don't reschedule, they just don't